Hello all, this is asynchronous video number 2 for the week. In this video I will show you some more from chapter 2 in our textbook. We looked at output in the last video. Now let's take a look at some input. I already went ahead and made an empty project, and I have the desktop, my project name, chapter 2 input notes, check the box, create. As we go forward, I'm not going to take the time to do all these extra steps in the video. You'll just get used to it. But here at the beginning, I think it's important to still see how all this is done. Again, once you are here to this screen, we're going to go up to Solution Explorer, right-click on source file, add a new item. Keep all that the same, keep that the same. CPP file, hit add, and you are good to go. All right, so let's put in name, date. This is period, let's use 3 this time, and chapter 2 input notes. Notice for this one I did inline comments instead of the block comment from the last video, the slash star star slash. Here I just used 2 slashes. That's perfectly okay. Why not? We have the include file, include IOStream. We have using namespace std, the standard namespace, main function, and return 0. I know the repetition aspect of coding is not really present in a virtual world. Hopefully you are doing more than just watching these videos. Hopefully you are not just watching, but also either coding afterwards or somehow even coding at the same time. Watch a little bit, pause it, watch a little bit, pause it. I know it's hard to recreate the in-class coding experience when you are watching a video, but again, just do your best. As I always say in my analogy, if we had a class on swimming, I could read you a book on swimming, I could show you videos on swimming, but until you jump in the pool, you're going to have no idea how to swim. Computer science, computer programming is the same way. You can watch all these videos, and until you actually start putting your fingers to the keyboard and coding, it's just not the same experience. So I really would encourage you, if not go as far as requiring you, to code these things as I or after I do them in the video. I can lead you to the water, but I can't make you take a drink. So let's do our best here. All right, so we'll combine some output with input. So with input, the thing is, in order to do input, you need variables. In C++, it's called a strongly typed language. What that means is every variable needs a type. It's much more similar to Visual Basic in that way. If you remember in Visual Basic, we had to dim variables. Well, here, we don't have to dim them, but we do have to declare them. So we'll keep it simple early on. We'll just stick with plain old integers. So we're going to use int, the keyword you've already seen because of int main. And as I said, let's just keep it relatively simple for now. We'll do int num. We'll make a variable. Now, with variables, there are rules for variables. I won't get fully into them at the moment, but all the rules you once were told still apply. They can't be keywords, they can't have spaces, things like that. We will get to those, but not right now. That's not the purpose of this video. I just want to dive in how to do input. So I first need to declare the variable. Then I will do the opposite of cout. I will do cin. And as I said in the last video, one thing that will confuse you early on, the less than symbol is for cout. Input is greater than. The flow has reversed. You're doing input into the variable. You're going to say cin num. Now, you notice what's missing here. You don't have anything like, please enter a number or something like that. You can't do that with a cin statement, because if you try to do that, like if I try and say, what is your number? What you're trying to tell the computer is you're trying to say, send input into this string, and you can't do that. That's not possible. If you do want to put a prompt. You can, but you put it on the line before. So if I say cout, what is your number? Well, then it's okay, because you're splitting it. You're saying print this, then input this. I will also give you a little bit of heads up. The website I asked you to sign up for, the Replit website, the way it checks your work is by matching the input to the output. In those programs, you're going to you're not going to do the prompting, because the computer is going to look just for the inputs and the outputs. But when we do it here, quote unquote, in class, I do want you to have these prompts, because it's not good to just have like a blank black screen with a blinking cursor and okay, well, what do you want me to do? Well, you should tell them what to do. What is your number? That doesn't say what I'm doing with it, but I'm at least asking for a number. I'm not asking for a word. I'm not asking for a letter, a symbol. I'm specifically asking for a number. And in fact, it is an integer, so technically, I guess I should say, what is your integer number? Again, just be technical about it. So from here, I already showed you cout and some things you can do. Well, with the cout, I can also put in a variable. I can print the number back out. It's not very exciting, but I can. Notice it's not in quotes. It's just print out the variable. So if I say, what's your number, and I type in 5, and I hit enter, this program spits it back out. What's your number? 5. Hey, look, 5. Yay, exciting. Well, you don't just put the variable. You can also put a mathematical statement in there. Num times 2. You can double the number. You could add 5. You could subtract 50. You could divide by 2. Any mathematical statement, just like in your other languages, you can put there. Type in 5, and it gives you 10. You've doubled the number. The mathematical symbols are all the same that you're used to. You have plus, minus, times is the asterisk, divide is the /. Those are all the same. The one that is not the same is exponents. And then we won't say what it is yet, but I'll tell you what it's not. It's not the arrow above the 6. That will not give you power. So if you want to square something, that's not the way to do it. If I try to run this, well, first of all, you can see it's underlined in red, which is a tip-off that something's wrong. If I go to the error list, it says no operator, arrow up, the caret, matches these operands. In other words, I don't know what the symbol is. It doesn't work with this. That means it's something else. So we'll get into what that is later, but please just understand it's not that. All right. Let's say that you want to have text before that. Okay, well, here's how you do it. Again, we're looking at input, but also output. Put a little quote there and say, your number doubled is, and then you use those connectors, those less than symbols to join the text with the statement with the end out. It's one big stream of information. So you can join all of those things together. And again, if I try this out, if I say 5, your number doubled is 10. You notice how the spacing is a little bit wonky there. It's because I didn't put a space in myself. If I want a space, I put a space. If I want a space, I put a space. It's very literal in what it does. We can make this a bit more complicated. I can have other variables that I then create statements for. So if I have something like int num1, int num2, I'm declaring 2 new integers. before you ask, can you join them together on one line of code? The answer is yes. I can declare them separately, or I can declare them with a comma in between. That's fine. It's not good practice to declare variables all over the place. You have to declare them before you use them. So like I used num here, so I had to declare it up here. A good practice is to put all of your variables at the top of your main function. That way they work throughout your entire main function. But I'm going to make an exception in this case because, just for the purposes of this video, I'm almost treating these like they're two separate programs. Notice here I put a little inline comment to divide them. Feel free to use those kind of things. So with those two variables, if I want to do input, I could, or I could just put them in the code. I could say num1 equals 7, num2 equals 8, int sum equals num1 plus num2. As I'm doing this, take notice that all of these lines end in semicolons, the statement terminator. You're ending the line of code. The other big thing to note, and this is how it is with all the languages we've done, the assignment operator, the equal sign, it goes right to left. You're taking the number 8 and you're putting it into the thing on the left of the equal sign. You're taking the 7, you're putting it into the thing on the left of the equal sign. Down here, you're saying do the math, store it into that variable. You never will say something like num1 plus num2 equals sum. It's not going to work. It's going to tell you it has a modifiable L value. An L value is something that's on the left of an equal sign. The thing on the left of the equal sign must be the variable it's going into, not the other way around. So keep that in mind. So we have input. We also have numbers straight in the code. We have expressions. You can do output. So at this point, you can already do just basic calculation type stuff. Send in a number, give out an answer. You could do things like converting inches to centimeters. You could convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, things of that nature. There are some issues, however, and there's also a bunch that's missing. We're doing integers. Addition, subtraction, multiplication are all going to yield integers. You add two integers, you get an integer back. You subtract two integers, you get an integer back. You multiply two integers, you get an integer back. When you divide, that's not necessarily the case. Watch this. Okay. And I guess technically back here I should say, like, see out the sum is sum and L. All right, so let's try this. I have an integer A equals 10. An integer B equals 3. When I divide them, if I say integer quotient, Q-U-O-T, equals A divided by B, if I were to print that out, it should give me a decimal. 10 divided by 3 gives me a repeating decimal. But because I'm using strictly integers at the moment, it's not going to. If I say, here in my previous program, so if I say that's 5. So down here, your number double is 10. That's the first part of the program. Your sum of 8 and 7 is 15. Here, dividing 10 and 3 gives me 3, because really, it's 3 and a third. But because we're doing integers, the computer has dropped the decimal entirely. It's gotten rid of it. If you're doing integer math, you're not going to get decimal results. So those are just little things you want to be careful about. When we, again, you might remember we had these issues back in our previous programming languages. It's not like this is new material. There's new, words and new languages, new commands in this language, but the concepts are still the same. If you learn programming, you learn it regardless of the language. It's just like if I speak both English and Spanish and I hold up a red ball, whether I say red ball in English or whatever in Spanish, it's still red ball. If I'm doing print in Python, if I'm doing a message box in Visual Basic, if I'm doing cout in C++, it's still printing. Like, it doesn't matter what you say, it still does the same concept. Okay. To wrap up this video, we've done output and input. The final thing I'm going to do, just as a very brief introduction to it, will be an if statement. Oops. Hang on. There we go. If statements. Again, this is a very brief introduction. It'll only take a couple minutes. We'll go deeper into this later, but an if statement is a command that lets you say something true or false based off of a result. For instance, going back up here, we have a couple things. We have num, we have sum, we have quotient. So let's just do something very simple. Let's say if the sum is less than or greater than the number that we have up top. So to do an if statement, it's the keyword if, no surprise there. But then what I do is I use a parenthesis, and in the parenthesis I put what's called a Boolean condition. A Boolean is something either true or false. It is a mathematical thing based off of a mathematician whose name was George Boole, B-O-O-L. And he is the founder of modern logic. So we call these things Booleans. In fact, there's a variable type called a Boolean type. Inside the if statement, we put one of the 6 ways of comparing things. Is it equal or not equal? Is it less than? Is it greater than? Is it less than or equal to? Greater than or equal to? Well, again, let's just keep it relatively simple. If the num is greater than the sum, now, again, going back to a year ago in Python, you might recall what we did was we put a little colon here, and then when we tabbed it, this was underneath the if statement. It is similar in C++, but not the same. What we do is, just like the main function, we use a second set of curly braces to denote that whatever's inside these braces is inside the if statement. So if this is a true statement, if the number is in fact greater than the sum, I'm going to print that out. I will say cout. The number is greater than the sum. And L. That is an if statement in C++. This line only prints if this is a true statement. Notice I did not put a semicolon here. That is a mistake that many people will make early on. If you put a semicolon there, the computer thinks that the end of the if statement is right there. Because remember, the semicolon is a statement terminator. It's the ending. Well, that's not the ending. It's like if blah, 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 then this. So you don't put a semicolon here, but what you rather do is you let this bracket act like the semicolon. You have it act like this is the end of that statement. So if I try to run this, remember my sum is 15. So if I put in a number that's bigger than 15, it should print that out for me. It's running. I just don't know what's happening. Hold on, let's pause the video. All right, we're back. A little crash there. So again, we're looking for typing in a number that's bigger than 15. So if I put in 25, the number is greater than the sum because 25 is greater than 15. So that is a brief introduction to if statements. We will do much more with that in the days and weeks to come. I will cut this off now. We're about 20 minutes in. That was an overview of inputs, outputs, and an introduction to if statements. Have a good one.